There are people that wake up in the morning and make everyone else's day hell. I don't know why. I've never figured that out. But there are. It's almost like there's some people out there that find joy in sprinkling bullshit through an environment and watching people turn.
Welcome to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed, practical leadership for modern workplaces. A podcast where we explore actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence, build cohesive teams, and create thriving workplace cultures.
We're here for the career-focused professionals climbing the corporate ladder, the managers navigating team dynamics, and the leaders shaping the future of work. In each episode, we'll break down challenges, share practical advice, and leave you with insights you can apply today.
I'm Patrick Law, your co-host, a Gulf War veteran with over 26 years of corporate leadership experience in banking and payments, blending precision and innovation with a tad of passion to solve big challenges.
And I'm Rachel Book, a C-suite trusted advisor and an HR leader with 2 decades of experience at Fortune 50 companies, specializing in building people-first strategies and driving impactful talent solutions.
Together, Rachel and I, we combine operational expertise and transformational leadership to bring you real-world advice on leadership, workplace culture, team dynamics, career growth, and anything else that we may want to delve into.
So, if you're ready to take your career and leadership skills to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Toxic environments. And welcome everybody to this episode of our podcast. I'm excited about this one. You probably think that's weird that I'm excited to talk about toxic environments, but they're real. And they're everywhere. They're in the military. They're in law enforcement. They're in fire departments. They're in not-for-profits. They're in corporate America, private equity, venture capital, publicly traded, name it. Maybe in your household, sadly. Like we all know, and maybe sometimes are the reason for the toxic environments. So this would be a good dialogue. So Rachel, I'll kick it to you to fire us off.
Wow. So, I think we have to tackle this topic from 2 perspectives. So one, from the perspective of a leader. So if you are a leader in an environment which is toxic, whether you're noticing it yourself or it has been pointed out to you, you have a real responsibility to deal with it. So I think that's one perspective. The second perspective is if you are the subject or the recipient, I don't want to say victim, but if you are the recipient of toxicity in your work environment, what do you do? Right? How do you speak up? How do you decide if it's safe to speak up? How do you decide if you just suck it up and deal with it? So I think there's really those 2 perspectives that we should tackle. On the first one, if you're the leader, I believe very strongly that toxicity is never productive and leaders should never allow it. Patrick and I have a real no asshole policy where we work. Somebody could be amazing at their job, but if they're not nice to people and they are creating a toxic environment and they're being disrespectful, they should not have the privilege to work with us. We can always find someone else who can do that job equally or better, right? So I think leaders, and this is a philosophy, I believe this with the core of my being, that leaders have a responsibility to fix this, right? To look out for it. If it's pointed out to them, they should acknowledge it and deal with it. Hopefully they have a good HR partner to figure out how to go about doing an investigation, how to make sure that you're not making any false accusations, right? That you're removing bias from the situation. But toxic environments are crippling, they are crushing, and they prevent people from being productive because they're thinking about the drama all day. So even if you didn't care about being nice to people and treating people with respect, you should care about eliminating toxicity in your environment because it's distracting people from being the most effective. So I think that is, first of all, super duper important. I think sometimes, and I would always dig in, and just like we talked, earlier when we were speaking about ambiguity, right? When you encounter toxicity, or when you encounter anything, I think the first question I would ask, is this temporary or is it permanent, right? Is it a really tough 2 weeks that everyone has to get through where we know people are going to be grumbly because they're up all night and we just have to get through it? Or is this, deep in the core of our being? When you encounter toxicity, is it one bad apple? Or is it the entire culture where it's become acceptable, where some behaviors or some interactions have become acceptable? So I think figuring out those, like doing a diagnostic as a leader and really making sure that you understand what's going on, what might be causing it before you address it. And then, just like every leader needs to do when you encounter something that's not okay, you notice it and you name it and you call it out and you say, this is what happened last week in this meeting. That is not acceptable. We do not allow that kind of behavior. Zero tolerance policy, right? For bullying, for whatever it is that happened that is causing the toxic environment. And when people hear that from a leader and when they see consequences that occur, when they see that people are being celebrated for healthy things and not for toxic things, that's what helps everyone understand what's okay and what's not okay, right? That's what writes the rule of the road, right? When it comes to leadership. So before we tackle from the employee's perspective, Patrick, what do you think about that? What have you done as a leader in your environments if you've noticed toxicity or if it was pointed out to you?
The last 15 years of my career, I bring a tank to kill an ant. You can't allow those behaviors to stay. Now, corporate America doesn't make it easy to exit. A lot of firms, a lot of companies, a lot of whatever, particularly the publicly traded kind, operate from a model of fear of the unknown. Meaning, is the employee going to sue us? Like, how do you gauge toxic? How do you gauge negative versus positive mental attitude? And, I took a run at this several times at the bank and did accomplish it at Fiserv. Accomplished it at the bank too, but it was harder at the bank back in the day, where I wanted the quarterly sit-down reviews to include attitude. And I got a lot of pushback on that. Like, how do you write a goal for attitude? And people think I have a salty mouth. This book here with the a-hole comment, I loved it. I said the same thing in the room. I'd be like, why do we want assholes working here? I mean, we have a lot of good humans here, and the place is hard enough. These places are hard. I mean, it doesn't matter where you work. The places where I work, the places where you work, wherever anyone work, could be the Marine Corps, could be the Colleyville Police Department. I don't know, whatever. I mean, people make things harder than they need to be. We all have jobs because people exist. Mistakes happen because of people. And until Skynet rises and the machines are running the earth before they turn on us, imperfection is the word. Imperfection. We're going to make mistakes. Our outside lives impact our inside lives, right? Like, lots of people deal with a lot of tough things, and then they come to work, they're going to make mistakes. Don't confuse people having a tough time with toxicity. Now, let me turn the wheel and say, there are people that wake up in the morning and make everyone else's day hell. I don't know why. I've never figured that out. But there are. It's almost like there's some people out there that find joy in sprinkling bullshit through an environment and watching people turn. I had a boss, God rest his soul, I won't say his name, but for some of you who are listening to this, the company was GenPass Technologies, and he was the founder and CEO. He would say out loud, I like it when my direct reports argue with each other. It breeds a different level of engagement and ideation. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I've never bought into that. But GenPass was probably the most toxic environment I ever worked. By far. I mean, this man told me in a staff meeting that I was so dumb, I shouldn't have children. He's in First Sergeant Sale. Some people you learn what not to do more than you learn what to do. And most of my bosses, good, bad, and the ugly, I learned what not to do mostly. And that was a version of that. Jobs are hard enough. If Sally is sitting next to Johnny and Johnny makes Sally's life miserable because he's miserable, bad attitude, dysfunctional, isn't good at their job, ignoring those hard conversations with Johnny's a version of allowing toxicity. Come face to face with things and just deal with them. And if you're not comfortable being uncomfortable in the moment, staring at another human being and saying, what's wrong with you? Now, everybody listening, Rachel would handle that a lot differently. That's what's beautiful about our relationship. I just say it, whether I've gotten away with it or whatever over my career. I just say what I'm thinking, good, bad, or ugly. So I would look at someone and say, what's wrong with you? Something happening? Because this isn't working. And you're making everyone around you uncomfortable and unhappy and miserable. And they already have a hard job. So get happy or get out. And if you can't choose positive mental attitude, because it is a choice. Positive mental attitude is a choice. You can wake up and put your feet on the floor and be grateful you're drawing a breath and go about your day to make other people's day okay. No one's responsible for another person's happiness. Even in your personal life, you can't make your wife or husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other happy. You can create an environment where if they choose positive mental attitude, life is good. Same thing at work. Like, it's not the corporation's job to make the environment perfect. It's your role to make the organization better. There is no perfect. And if that drives an energy in you that creates a negative environment for the people around you, then leave. Don't come and plant negative seeds. Plant positive seeds. And if you just can't choose positive mental attitude where you're employed, you're in the wrong place. Yeah. So head on. Now that's my last 15 years. And I know I'm going on, but bear with me. That's my last 15. Yeah. And I'd say my last 15's gone pretty good. Not great. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've shot my mouth off where I shouldn't. I've overstepped and didn't stay in my lane, which is also inappropriate. But okay, it's better than okay. The first 10, I was toxic. I entered the civilian workforce in October of 1996 after 4 years in the military, from 17 years old to 22-ish, and then flying. I was a pilot. Now, I don't talk about that part a lot because I loved it. That was my dream, was to be an aviator. My dream was to be on a flight deck by myself with maybe one other person flying freight to Tokyo. I'm not kidding. Like DFW Tokyo, 4 times a month. At the time, I think it paid $175,000 a year. For me, that was a dream. That's what I want to do. So my family owned a charter company in Rochester, New York called Bill Law Aviation. He passed away in an aircraft accident, sadly. But he was a famous pilot in the Northeast. He flew in Vietnam. He took over a legendary flight company in Rochester, New York, where I was getting my undergrad. And I flew at night and went to school during the day. And I loved Billy, but he was toxic. He struggled with alcoholism. And he's long gone. So the statute of limitations of talking about this out loud are okay. So, but he struggled, and it made him an angry person. And he was our boss. I mean, to the point where he would give out flight assignments based on who had a drink with him the night before. I'm not making that up. Oh. And I was a kid. I was 22, 23 years old. So between my military experiences and flying for Billy, I enter a company called Affiliated Computer Services, which was founded and run by a very famous entrepreneur by the name of Darwin Deason. And he had some amazing direct reports. It was the environment of hustle. No matter what you needed to do to win the deal, do it. It's okay. So if you do the math on military experience, which was wonderful. Not my time in Iraq wasn't always wonderful, but I wouldn't trade my time in uniform and the people I served with for anything. But it's an environment. It's not standard. Not standard. Flying for Billy, very not standard. Then ACS. So my first experience in corporate America was a hustle environment. Good environment. Look, they sold that company for billions of dollars. It went public. It made people a lot of money. So there's nothing wrong with what the outcome was. But maybe in today's day and age, ACS would be looked at like, ooh. So I didn't really have a good grounding of what was appropriate or what wasn't. I'd walk up to someone's desk and say, hey, give me the TPS report. Now, for those of you who know that reference, it's from a really great movie about corporate America. I wouldn't ask them how their weekend was. I didn't even know if some of the people that I worked with had kids or they were married. I didn't care. Mission, mission, mission. Now, that made me actually pretty effective because nothing got in my way. Achieve, go, climb. And I don't mean my career. I mean, get things done. I missed a lot of moments with my coworkers that I was so off-putting to them and came off as rude and disrespectful and insert a word. I caught them all, but I didn't even see it because I wasn't self-aware. I hadn't even heard the word ambiguity yet. That was our last episode, right? Like I was just operate. And I caught a lawsuit for creating a toxic workplace. I'd never heard of a lawsuit before. I was a soldier pilot. I'd been in corporate America for like 9 months. And at ACS, you got promoted really quick. I mean, I made vice president and an officer of the company in 2 years, Rachel. I didn't have any experience. All of a sudden, I'm a VP. Because I just walk up and say, get out. You're not doing a good enough job. Go home. Think about it. Like, just dumb. Like, in today's day and age, like, I wouldn't make it. If that was me today, I wouldn't make it. But I had a boss who said, there's something about this guy. Let's send him to obedience school. They actually called it that. One of my bosses called it canine training. You're a rabid dog law. We're going to send you and get you housebroken. And there's this, and I'll talk to you about this, Rachel. I want everyone to hear this.
Yeah.
There was an organization called Farr and Associates in High Point, North Carolina. And eventually BB&T Bank bought it, of all things. Like, it's somehow this really smart group of psychiatrists and psychologists who work with people to help them become self-aware, started this group. And it was Dr. Farr and a group of people. And then BB&T loved it so much, every leader at BB&T went through their 3-day program. ACS put me through the year-long program, 1 year. They recorded my coworkers on tape. For this is how old I am, right? They would put a recorder in front of my coworkers and say, tell me about Patrick Law. Now, what do you think the first thing is that people said about me, Rachel, on those recordings? Because they make you listen to them. I listened to 17 recordings of my coworkers. What do you think the first thing they said?
That you get things done, but you step on people to get there.
No, biggest asshole I've ever worked with in my life.
Wow.
One of these people they interviewed was my future wife. Lisa and I met at work.
You should listen to that on every anniversary.
I have the tapes.
Do you really?
I have everything. It was such an impactful experience to have your outside ripped off and to be shown your inside. And I was not a good coworker. I was not a good partner. I was adrift. Now, a year later, they do the same interviews again. And the interview said, he's better, but he still has a lot to work on. It would be nice if he didn't look at his shoes when he walked down the hallway. Now listen to this. Look at your shoes. I'll never forget this. Why does he look at his shoes when he walks down the hallway instead of looking at us and saying, good morning, good afternoon, how's your day? Now, I'm a New Yorker who's military flyer, new to being a rank of any kind in corporate America. I'm like, what does it matter if you're having a good day? I was still dealing with that after a year of self-evaluation of my behaviors and my toxicity. They ain't coming back. And there is no, oh, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. It's in there now. It is lodged in their psyche, what you say. Don't listen to someone who says, well, I apologize. I made it better. No, you didn't. You better really have your commentary straight before you put it in the wind, because you could change a relationship forever. And not everybody speaks the same language. And I don't mean linguistics. I mean the way people hear you, the way people listen, and the words you choose have to be tied together. And ever since, this was in 1999 when I went through this program, 98, 99. To this day, I lay awake at night after I speak publicly. Rachel, I can't tell you how many times after we've done these podcasts and I listen to them later when they're live, and I get like a cold sweat, like, God dang, I didn't mean to say it that way. Or why didn't I say that? Like, they put something in my brain so deep that almost 20 years later, or whatever it is, 25 years later to you, is you're already in the room before you walk in it. People's perception of you is already in the room when you walk in it. And if you're not thinking 1 day, 2 days, 5 days ahead all the time, you're going to make a mistake in how you're speaking, right down to your body language. Like, I'm a fidgeter. And they did a lot of work on me in that program with, it was almost like Manchurian Candidate school. They did a lot of mental and emotional programming over a year on me. And my tapping of my foot, I used to do this with a pen on the desk all the time. I didn't realize it was broadcasting to people in the room that I was bored with them, or that what they said didn't matter. Like, a lot of the tapes, the interviews and the tapes, and a lot of in-person interviews that I did in that year, because they made me go back after listening to the tapes and talk to people about my behavior, explain it to them. Not apologize, but explain it. Isn't that wild? It's an immersion of a self-awareness journey that was unfun. Like, getting to know yourself is scary, but knowing what version of you is in the room already takes a lot of mental and emotional energy to deal with that with the people you work with. Now, this was when we were all in offices. It was a little easier, right? You could read people's body language up and down. Like, you can't see my feet right now. You don't know if my legs are moving or not. But there's still a version of it virtually, understanding who Rachel is and what Rachel's idea of me is. Now do that with everyone you work with. It's exhausting. Very last comment. Everybody, leadership is exhausting. The environment more exhausting through toxic behaviors. I'm embarrassed of my first 10 years, not as a leader, but your people first. Your job title doesn't mean squat. The brand of your organization doesn't mean anything either. It's a collection of human beings that come from different backgrounds, different experiences, different versions of happiness, different versions of hard times. And everyone you look at is dealing with something. So if you don't take a minute to think about what's in the room before you walk in it, a virtual room or a real room, you might accidentally create toxicity. And it's important, if you're going to lead other human beings, that you burn those calories doing everything you can to know who you are, so you don't accidentally make an environment unpalatable.
What an amazing commitment from your employer that they saw this incredible potential in you. They acknowledged that your behaviors were not productive, and they said, we can fix this. And you obviously were self-aware and receptive to doing the hard work to make it better. So,
yeah,
wow.
The number one thing is what an a-hole he is. And number two thing is, we have no idea how he gets so much done in a day. If the second thing wasn't in the equation, they wouldn't have invested that in me. If I was just flailing around being a jerk, they would have exited me at some point. But if they could hone whatever was wrong with my brain to match what was in my heart, you know what? It was a blessing.
Don't diminish the hard work that you did, because I bet there were other people they put into this program that failed out after a few weeks or a few months.
Nobody else went through this program.
Oh, really?
I was the first and last. Now, I sent people through it for budget at US Bank, and all of my direct reports in 2009 went through the 3-day program, because everybody should take a look at yourself. Yeah. And look, they're still out there. Anyone here can Google that program. Just go look up at BB&T Leadership Institute. Actually, I think it's called the Truist Institute now, because Truist Bank bought BB&T.
Yes.
But they still run it. And every branch manager, every leader in that bank goes through this process, not the year-long one. If your employer won't do it and you're serious about improving your posture, your presence to avoid toxic environments, to either kill them or to not create them or both, spend your own money on it. It's a couple grand. I know that I make it sound like it's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But an investment in yourself is pretty important. The payback you'll get career-wise, whether it's job satisfaction or salary or whatever you're out hunting, I'm telling you guys, it's an amazing program. And it's a toxic killer.
That's amazing. So we heard Patrick talk about what a leader does when they notice, right? He shared some examples of how he's shut down toxicity when he's seen it in other people, and how his company invested in adjusting some of his own behaviors. But what if you're just a regular person who shows up to work, whether it's in person or on a Zoom, and you are experiencing toxicity? Maybe you have a really bad boss. Maybe some of your coworkers are being really mean to you. Maybe bad behaviors are being celebrated and rewarded. What do you do? Do you stay? Do you go? Do you speak up? Do you try and fight it? It's a really tough decision. And so a couple of words of advice from my perspective is, the first thing that I think you should do is that diagnostic that I talked about earlier, right? Say, is this temporary? Is this permanent? Do I think this is really embedded in the fabric of the organization, or is it just one person who's acting like a jerk? Try and just figure out what is the situation itself. And then look around you and consider whether it's safe to speak up. And a lot of that will depend on the culture, right? Is there someone that you feel comfortable speaking to? Have you had conversations with your manager about other topics in the past where they seem to care? What happens if you do lose your job or somebody does retaliate against you for speaking up? What are your personal circumstances? And so for everyone, that's going to be different, right? Whether it's safe for you to speak up is really going to be a thought process that you need to have and that you need to think through. If it is safe to speak up, or if you say, hey, you know what, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to find another job anyway, then I would encourage you to be bold and courageous and speak up. Because if you're experiencing toxicity, other people probably are too. And maybe you can make the environment better for other people. So that's the first thing I would ask. The other thing I would encourage you to think about is, if this is something that might be temporary, maybe you have a bad boss, but you know that you're going to switch bosses every year and a half, or maybe you're only planning to be in this job for a defined period of time to acquire certain experiences, you might decide, you know what, this is really not enjoyable. I do not like the people that I work with. I really don't like being treated this way. And I don't think that I'll be able to fix it, or I've tried and this toxicity is not disappearing. You might still make a judgment call that it's worth it for you. And you might say, I need to get this piece of experience where really this is going to be helpful in my career. And this is why I'm here. And every time you feel downtrodden because you're being treated that way, you might remind yourself, hey, but here's all the reasons why I still choose to be here. And that might be worth it for a particular period of time. The real differentiator, and I've seen this over and over again, is work-life balance. And what I mean by work-life balance is not that you're working too many hours and you're not paying attention to your family. What I mean is, if you are in a toxic environment at work and it's just, you never know what to expect and people are bullying you or bad behaviors are being rewarded and it's really unpleasant, if you also have instability in your personal life, that might be too much for one person to handle. And instability in your personal life can mean difficult family relationships, difficult friendships. It could mean financial hardships. It could mean you're dealing with a personal health issue, right, for yourself or with someone in your family. Generally speaking, it's really, 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 really hard to have toxic or less than ideal environments, both at home and at work. And so if your home life is really hard, even if it's temporary, you might say, you know what? I don't want to deal with this crap at work. I need to find an environment where I'm appreciated, where people are nice to me, where I don't have to deal with this. And that's a very legitimate decision. If things are really okay on the home front in your personal life, right? If you've got stability in your life, you might have a higher tolerance to deal with whatever's happening at work. That doesn't make it okay. And that doesn't mean that you should experience things that are less than respectful. But again, if you make a judgment call that that's what you want to do, you might decide that it's worth it for whatever reason. And so I would say, really think through and decide for yourself what is happening. How is it affecting your mental health? Are you the kind of person that can compartmentalize, right? And say, hey, okay, you're being a jerk. That's your problem, not mine. I'm just going to do my job and move on. Or are you the kind of person that ruminates, right? When people say things to you and then you start second guessing your abilities and then you start being upset why you weren't invited to one meeting and why people are excluding you from that and why somebody got a promotion and not you. And if you're the kind of person that spirals when this kind of stuff happens, then it means that this toxicity is affecting you more than other people, right? And again, it's just the different ways that our brains work and the different ways that we're able to compartmentalize. And so it might be that one person, that Patrick and I can be in the same environment and he might say, okay, it's toxic, but whatever. I'm just going to keep, my eye on the prize. I'm going to do what I do. And, it's fine. I don't care. It's that person's problem, not mine. And I might say, but I don't want to be around toxicity, right? This bothers me to the very essence of my being, right? And again, that's just what makes people different. And so don't think that just because other people seem to have an easy time handling it, that, there's something wrong with you for not, right? Your boss might say, well, you know what? This person's been doing this forever and everyone else is fine. Why do you have a problem with it? Well, you know what? You might be different. And so as an individual, I think, look around you. So here is a couple of takeaways. Look around you and say, why is this toxicity happening? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? Is it one bad apple? Is it the whole barrel? How am I equipped to be able to handle this toxicity? How hard is this for me? How is it interfering with my mental health? And then you might decide that it's time to move on. You might say, you know what? I might speak up. I might want to fix it. Or you might say, I'm just going to find another job. Life's too short. And that's perfectly okay. I've left certain environments because I was not enjoying them, and that's okay. Last takeaway I would say is when you look for your next adventure in your career, ask very targeted questions and keep your eyes open to see if there are signs of similar toxicity, because you can choose an environment that rewards the behaviors that you appreciate and that you align with. There might be places where people are hand-to-hand combat every day and they don't make time for niceties. And for some people, that's fine. If you're not that person, then you should be careful to seek out environments where you find a culture that aligns with what you enjoy. So what are some takeaways from you, Patrick?
When bricks of gold are laid down before you, you don't add silver. I think you summed it up perfectly. And I say we call it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a heavy topic, and I hope that if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never experienced that. But if it does resonate with you, if you have anything to add or share, I know, but if you have advice or if you've found some sort of secret weapon to deal with this type of behavior in the workplace, please let us know. We'd love to learn from you too.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. It only takes 1 minute and it helps the show grow and reach more leaders like you in search of advice and motivation.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Please remember to share with your friends and family and coworkers, mentors, trusted advisors. This show is for everybody. See you next time.